In this video, we take a look at the events that took place in the American state of Illinois on the evening of January 23, 2022. 20-year-old Charisma Ehresman left her home in Forest View, Illinois, driving a red 2014 Ford Fiesta, not knowing she would not return home. When she did not return home and calls went unanswered, a police report was filed, and a search for Charisma began. Charisma Marie Ehresman was born on September 17, 2001, to Christina and Jeffrey Ehresman. She was an outgoing person from the moment she learned to talk. Her father, Jeffrey, remembers taking her to the park as a child, where she would boldly approach other children and ask if they wanted to be friends with her or play with her. She was never shy. Jeffrey Ehresman said she was the most open and outgoing girl you've ever met. Anyone who knew Charisma Ehresman wouldn't be surprised by her career choice to become a nurse. It was all she ever wanted to do, to help people. Charisma was fiercely independent and worked 2 jobs to make her goal of becoming a nurse a reality. She had recently enrolled herself in Triton College in River Grove, but she didn't tell anyone she was returning to school after taking a year off due to the pandemic until the first day of classes. The Ehresman family reported their daughter missing on Monday morning, January 24, 2022, after she left their Forest View home the night before and didn't return. After Charisma's parents anxiously reported her mysterious disappearance, the police, driven by the desire to find the young woman, immediately launched an investigation with a range of decisive and carefully considered measures. From the very beginning, officers conducted exhaustive and detailed interviews with her parents and next of kin in an effort to gather as much valuable information as possible about Charisma's last days with her family, her mood, possible worries, and main activities. They also sought to find out in which companies and with whom she preferred to spend her time, and which of her friends she was closest to. Each of Charisma's friends and acquaintances was questioned, but unfortunately, none of them could shed any light on her possible whereabouts. All of them, as one, claimed that she had not been in contact with them recently, as if she had vanished into thin air or hidden from view, leaving only the echoes of her smile in the memories of her loved ones. Particular attention was paid to investigating the possible existence of enemies in Charisma's life. It was necessary to thoroughly investigate whether there were conflicts or disagreements with anyone in her life, or whether there were acquaintances who could have benefited significantly from her disappearance. The analytical eye of the investigators was directed toward reconstructing the events, searching for motives and paths that could have led to such a sudden disappearance. At the same time, the investigators sought to understand whether Charisma had ulterior motives for leaving her parents' home. They tried to penetrate the secret nooks and crannies of her personal and family life to uncover the circumstances that might have prompted her to take such a drastic step. However, Charisma's parents, overwhelmed with anxiety and love for their daughter, immediately rejected such an assumption. They asserted with absolute certainty that their daughter had not had the slightest reason to run away from home. "We're all just in shock, in complete and utter shock," Jeffrey Ehresman said. "We knew the second she went missing that something was wrong because she doesn't go missing. This isn't the girl that runs away when she's upset or spends days at a guy's house and doesn't tell anybody. At 20 years old, she texts her mom, 'Mom, going to so-and-so's house. Be back in a couple of hours.'" It is important to note that the public also joined the search. The police called on anyone with any information to come forward and help in the search. This comprehensive approach to the investigation allowed for maximum focus on finding Charisma and clarifying all the circumstances surrounding her disappearance, with the hope of bringing her home as soon as possible. The leaflets distributed stated the following: "Charisma Ehresman is missing under suspicious circumstances, and the police are asking for the public's help in locating her." At 10:17 p.m. on January 23, 2022, Charisma Ehresman left her residence in Forest View, Illinois. She was wearing a tan jacket and black pants and carrying a small pink backpack. Charisma has missed work and school and has had no contact with family. She has 4 tattoos, a Virgo symbol behind her left ear, a half-moon sun tattoo on the back of her neck, a large Medusa tattoo on her right thigh in red ink, and the number S77 on the inside of her right forearm. She also has a small diamond stud nose piercing. She is traveling in a red 2014 Ford Fiesta, a 4-door sedan with Illinois license plates. After police began investigating Charisma's disappearance, the key detail that investigators immediately noticed was her car, a red 2014 Ford Fiesta. This brightly colored vehicle was easy to identify, and police soon identified it as an important target of the search. Patrol cars drove tirelessly around the neighborhoods, making sure to leave no nooks and crannies unattended. Parking lots near shopping centers, one of the most likely places to find the car, were the focus of attention. Police officers scrutinized every corner of these parking lots, breaking through the rows of cars in hopes of spotting a red Ford Fiesta. Not only were parking lots at large shopping malls checked, but also less obvious places, such as closed or underground parking lots, where cars left behind by still unreturned owners could be located. While the police tirelessly continued their search, the public followed the developments closely. Local television stations were increasingly reporting on the investigation. Charisma's disappearance and how everyone could help by reporting any information about Charisma's car or herself gained widespread attention. People on social media shared posts, wanting to contribute to the common cause of the search. All the measures taken by the police brought results, but unfortunately, this is a story without a happy ending. Charisma's parents reported her disappearance to the police on Monday, January 24, 2022. On Friday, January 28, police found the Ford parked on a street. Charisma was found unresponsive in the back seat of her car around 5:30 p.m. that Friday in the 5900 block of West Iowa Street on the city's west side. A Chicago police report shows she was pronounced dead at the scene. The car had been parked there since Monday morning, according to the police report. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office determined on Sunday that Charisma Ehresman died of strangulation and smothering, ruling her death a homicide. If we look at Google Maps, we can see a panorama of where Charisma's car was found, amidst a lot of other cars. If Charisma's car had been parked on another street, more deserted and less busy, it would certainly have attracted more attention. It is possible that the perpetrator deliberately chose this location, where the car would not arouse suspicion. According to the police report, Charisma's red Ford Fiesta had been parked here since Monday morning, which means it took police 5 days to find it. But now, the investigators' first priority was to identify the culprit. Police requested access to Charisma's cell phone geolocation data and reviewed surveillance footage of areas she frequented. Each piece of information was carefully analyzed to create a clear timeline of her movements. In today's world, online dating has become an integral part of everyday life for many people. These platforms offer an opportunity to meet and communicate with people from different parts of the world, find like-minded individuals, and even potential partners. However, despite the numerous advantages, online dating carries certain risks and dangers that should be taken into account. One of the main risks is the issue of security. When registering on dating platforms, users often provide personal information such as name, age, location, and photos. Unscrupulous people can use this data for personal gain, such as identity theft or other fraudulent activities. Another danger is related to possible false perceptions of the interlocutor's personality. Virtual communication allows people to hide their true motives by creating illusory images. This means that the person you are communicating with may not be who they say they are. This distortion of reality can lead to unpredictable consequences, especially if online communication is followed by real-life meetings. There is a risk of interacting with individuals who have malicious intent. Such people may use online platforms to find victims. It is important to be vigilant, closely monitor any suspicious behavioral signs, and avoid situations that could jeopardize your safety. While investigating Charisma Ehresman's case, investigators discovered that she had met 24-year-old Richard Chavez on the internet. Chavez had been in trouble with the law and had been on the police radar several times. Court records show Chavez pleaded guilty in 2016 to a misdemeanor count of resisting or obstructing police, and he was sentenced to a year of court supervision. Prosecutors dropped a count of contributing to the delinquency of a minor with his plea at the time. Charisma disappeared. Richard Chavez was on a police wanted list for driving under the influence of alcohol. Digging deeper into the investigation, investigators decided to examine Charisma's cell phone records, hoping they would provide long-awaited clues to solving the mystery. They were surprised when they discovered that the last call made by Charisma was to a number registered to Chavez. Quite remarkably, the last text message sent was also sent to Chavez. Investigators could not dismiss all these facts as mere coincidence. All the evidence pointed inexorably to Chavez and his connection to the disappearance of Charisma Ehresman, and it was no coincidence that he became the main and only suspect. The detectives scrutinized the data and determined the exact location of Chavez's residence. Deciding it was time for a visit, the two experienced investigators went to the address where he lived. As they approached his door, they knocked, and when the door opened, the detectives were confronted by a face covered with an expression of genuine amazement. Chavez, whose eyes were momentarily fixed in surprise, evidently did not expect to see policemen on his doorstep. The awkwardness of the moment quickly gave way to an inner struggle in his gaze as he seemed to gather his strength of character, turning excitement into restraint. Chavez seemed to gather his will into a fist and tried to look unfazed. The detectives, without giving him time for further thought, brought him up to speed, informing him that their visit was directly related to the disappearance of Charisma Ehresman and that they wanted to ask him some questions. Chavez tried to give the appearance of complete control over the situation, but there was a subtle tinge of nervousness in the depths of his eyes. He did not deny that he knew Charisma Ehresman and even said that he had met her only a few days before. With a face devoid of emotion, he confirmed to detectives that Charisma had come to his home on June 23rd and said their meeting ended in consensual intimacy. Chavez claimed he went to bed around 8 p.m. that night, and when he woke up around 10 a.m., he discovered that Charisma was no longer in his house. It occurred to him that she had simply gone home because the last time he saw her, there was complete harmony. When he finished his story, Chavez fell silent, staring intently into the detectives' faces as if waiting to see what they would do next. Perhaps he hoped they would just walk away. But the detectives realized there were some inconsistencies in Chavez's story. They couldn't help but notice a few scratches on Chavez's hands. Charisma may have fought back when he attacked her and scratched Chavez's hands in the ensuing struggle. This fact inevitably cast doubt on the veracity of Chavez's words. According to court records, officers arrested Chavez on an outstanding warrant for DUI, and he remained in jail on that case until police arrested him as a suspect in the Charisma Ehresman case. Charisma's parents said they had been left in the dark for much of the investigation, often learning updates through news reports. Her father said there is evidence to dispute every claim Chavez has made and that his daughter was not the type to go meet someone unknown for a hookup. He knows better than that. This isn't Charisma, her father, Jeffrey Ehresman, said. She would never have met up with someone on her own. Her parents believe someone their daughter knew must have told her that this evil man was trustworthy. In order to convict Chavez of Charisma's death, the police needed to have conclusive evidence. Detectives began interviewing Chavez's neighbors, and they were able to find something far more valuable than witness testimony. They found several surveillance videos that gave a clearer picture of what happened to Charisma. Here's what the court record said. Charisma was last seen leaving her home on Forest View, Illinois, around 10:15 p.m. On Sunday night, January 23rd, prosecutors said that night she drove to Richard Chavez's Oak Park home around 10:40 p.m. A neighbor's surveillance camera recorded Chavez greeting her and then going inside with Ehresman. Prosecutors said she never left. Early the next morning, around 7:30 a.m. on Monday, January 24th, surveillance video captured Chavez getting into Ehresman's car. Later that morning, separate surveillance video captured him exiting the car after parking it on the 5900 block of West Iowa in the South Austin neighborhood on the city's west side. Chavez allegedly walked around for about an hour in the neighborhood before he ultimately called his brother to come pick him up, less than a mile away from where he left Ehresman's car. During the investigation, prosecutors said a phone number belonging to Chavez was the last number she called, and her device triangulation showed it was at his address on the night she was last seen. While he was in jail, authorities recorded a phone call between Chavez and his parents, in which he told them to get his passport ready. Investigators who executed a search warrant at his home on January 31st found hair clippings in the garbage and a partially packed suitcase in his bedroom. 24-year-old Richard Chavez was charged with one count of first-degree murder. Judge Susana Ortiz ordered Chavez held without bail on the charge of first-degree murder. She also ordered him held without bail for violating the bond terms in his pending DUI case. The victim's family and friends were devastated by her death. Ehresman's grandmother, Kathy Ehresman, made a statement on behalf of her family to Richard Chavez. If you only knew what a loving soul Charisma Ehresman was. She had dreams of being a nurse to care for others. She hugged everyone she met and said, "I love you." She helped others in so many ways. Her wake was the most supportive, loving group of souls that knew her. She doesn't get to finish or yet start her dream path. You took that away from her. She can't have her children. She would have one day. Her 4-year-old niece, who called her Titi, still asks for her. My house has been a cry of wailing sounds of grief, pain, and loss. You took the most precious, loving soul you could have even known. I leave this in our Lord Jesus' hands. Who are you to take another one's life in your hands and murder them? What man takes a beautiful young woman's life? We can't have Charisma back in our lives. The Ehresman family wanted to thank everyone for their support throughout this tragedy. A website created by Charisma's family states that on February 23, 2023, a court hearing was held where Richard Chavez was indicted on a new charge. Specifically, he was charged with attempting to conceal a felony. Since then, no information about further proceedings has appeared on this site or elsewhere. Presumably, Chavez has not yet been sentenced. Charisma Ehresman loved hanging out with her friends and taking day trips to the city, where she would try new coffee shops or get fancy cupcakes. Her father, Jeffrey Ehresman, said he wants his daughter to be remembered for her tight bear hugs, which he described as her squeezing every drop of love out of her into you, and her caring heart. That's what she was. She was a beautiful soul. She's a pretty girl on the outside and inside. There's nobody that can match that. I've never met anyone in my life, he said. Charisma Ehresman's best friend, without a doubt, was her mother. It's all she cared about, Jeffrey Ehresman recalled. I don't know how my wife's going to survive without her. Her whole world was that girl.